The fluorescent lights of the Hinjawadi Phase 3 campus always flickered slightly right before the air conditioning kicked into high gear. But at 10:15 a.m. on a humid Tuesday, Rahul hardly noticed. He stared at the calendar invite that had appeared on his Outlook 10 minutes prior. Quick sync, business alignment, with his HR business partner and engineering director. 30 minutes later, 32-year-old Rahul walked out of the glass towers, carrying a cardboard box that contained 8 years of his career, a company-branded coffee mug, a couple of Spot Award trophies, and a notebook full of architecture diagrams for a project he would never finish. The rationale was smooth, rehearsed, and delivered with polite corporate sympathy. Market corrections, automation efficiencies, shifting regional priorities. As he stood in the parking lot waiting for his cab, the heavy silence hit him. At 32, as a senior software engineer, Rahul was used to being headhunted, not handed a severance package. His mind immediately began racing through a mental ledger, the home loan EMI due on the 5th, the recent car upgrade, and the stark reality of a tech market that had suddenly turned ice cold. He got into his cab, pulled out his phone, and opened his banking app. The screen loaded, revealing the true starting point of his next chapter.
The numbers stared back at him from the dimly lit phone screen, unblinking and cruel. 1 lakh rupees. 8 years. 8 long years of late-night deployments, weekend calls, and pushing code in Hinjawadi. 8 years of a senior software engineer's salary, distilled down to barely 1 lakh rupees. Sitting on the edge of his bed in the quiet house, Rahul's mind raced through a frantic ledger of his own making. Where did it all go? Then the memories flashed, heavy with regret. The lavish home renovation for his parents' comfort. The grand wedding that took a massive chunk of his initial savings. The luxury week-long vacation to Bali with his wife, snapped for Instagram. And worst of all, the financial commitments he had locked himself into just recently. A brand new car loan started in 2025, and a heavy EMI for a 3 BHK flat that had kicked in just last month. He took a deep breath, walked into the living room, and sat down with his parents, his wife, and their 8-year-old son, Arav. "Company restructure," Rahul said, keeping his voice as steady as he could fake. "I was laid off today. But don't worry, I'll get another job soon. Engineers with my experience are always needed." They smiled nervously and offered comforting words. But inside, panic was clawing at Rahul's chest. The math in his head was terrifying. 1 lakh wouldn't even cover 2 months of EMIs and basic groceries for a family of 5. The reality check, months 1 to 2. The next 8 weeks were a cold shower. Rahul sent out hundreds of applications, updated his resume daily, and reached out to every contact in his network. But the market had fundamentally shifted while he wasn't looking. The old tech stack wasn't enough anymore. Recruiter after recruiter demanded a mix of cloud architecture, Python, and hands-on AI integration. The market was flooded with talent, and the easy calls he used to get vanished. By the end of month 2, with his savings nearly wiped out and pressure mounting, Rahul made a hard choice. He accepted an offer from a mid-sized firm, Grow AI Limited, at a 10% pay cut from his previous salary. It wasn't a dream offer, but it was a lifeline. And Rahul swore he would never let himself be caught financially naked again. The reset, taking control. On his very first weekend after joining Grow AI, Rahul didn't relax. Instead, he booked an appointment with a certified fee-only financial planner. He laid out everything on the table. The pay cut, the 3 BHK mortgage, the car loan, the dependency of his aging parents and young son, and his empty bank account. "We start with protection, not investments," the planner told him firmly. Before putting a single rupee into the market, Rahul executed the baseline plan. Pure risk protection. He immediately bought comprehensive term insurance policies for both himself and his wife, securing his family's future against the worst-case scenario. He also secured an independent family floater health policy, so a medical emergency wouldn't sink them. The budget lockdown. The car was treated strictly as a utility. Non-essential spending was frozen, and lifestyle creep was killed instantly. Every extra rupee was mapped out before the month began. The upskilling pivot. At Grow AI, he poured himself into learning Python,
AWS, and AI tooling on the job, turning his pay cut into a practical masterclass for market relevance. The long climb, ages 32 to 48. Financial discipline isn't built on grand one-time gestures. It's built on hundreds of boring, repetitive, daily decisions. Over the next 16 years, Rahul stayed the course with ruthless consistency. Debt elimination. Any performance bonus, tax refund, or side consultancy fee went straight toward prepaying the high-interest car loan first, then chipping away at the principal of the 3 BHK home loan. Automated wealth building. As his skills in AI and cloud grew, so did his compensation. But instead of upgrading his lifestyle, he channeled every salary hike into automated monthly SIPs across low-cost index funds and equity funds. The emergency shield. He maintained a non-negotiable 6-month liquid emergency fund, ensuring he would never face that 10:15 a.m. HR meeting in a state of terror again.
The 1 crore milestone at 48. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, just after his 48th birthday, Rahul sat at the same study desk where he had once stared at a balance of 1 lakh rupees in absolute panic. He opened his portfolio dashboard. Between his disciplined SIPs, compounded market returns, and a debt-free foundation, his net investment corpus had officially crossed 1 crore rupees, not counting his fully paid-off home. His son was now entering college, his parents were comfortably cared for, and the ghost of that Hinjewadi layoff was finally laid to rest. The 10% pay cut at Grow AI hadn't been the end of his career. It had been the wake-up call that forced him to master his money before his money mastered him. Standing on the balcony, looking out over the Pune skyline, Rahul realized the true power of that journey. The pink slip in Hinjewadi had taken away his job, but financial discipline had given him back his freedom.